Around 2 weeks ago, I made a video where I put together a tier list of all of the players that had qualified for the 2026 candidates. The list is genuinely backed by decent statistical evidence and what you'd call the eye test, which is everything that isn't statistical that you would have to know by being immersed in the chess world. However, it has been brought to my attention that a certain grandmaster did not like my tier list and uploaded a 23-minute video calling me a nobody and saying that I knew nothing about chess. That certain somebody was Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura. And in today's video, I'm going to be standing on business and going over all of the points he made in his video. I'm going to be critiquing his tier list and further explaining all of my points. So let's jump straight into Hikaru's video and see what he has to say.
This is not some huge YouTuber, but it's just someone making a tier list. Now, I will add one thing that I will say. This is all in good fun. The one thing I want to say about the candidates tournament, and it's very hard for somebody who doesn't really follow chess at a very high level to understand. I can put it a little bit faster. I'll put it 1.25. But the thing that I would say about the candidates is if you've never played the candidates or a world championship match, you really don't know what goes into the tournament and the whole experience. And so honestly, I would say that, like, if a GM who's, like, say 2700 but has never played the candidates, for example, were to comment and say things about the event, I wouldn't even necessarily treat them like they're an expert on the topic, because the atmosphere and the uniqueness of the event is just so completely different from any other event. Now, it doesn't apply to this specific video, of course. This is not like a 2700 GM, but just in general, if you've never played the candidates and you haven't had that experience, it's very hard to really talk about the event with any kind of actual understanding.
I disagree with this point completely, and I think there are a lot of ways to prove it. It's kind of like saying Premier League players will more accurately predict what goes on in other Premier League matches simply because they know what it takes to play in the Premier League. It's completely untrue. If anything, they're going to be subject to more bias in the echo chambers that they're already in. This can be proven by Magnus Carlsen's 2024 candidates prediction.
I think he has an excellent chance, so I think he belongs in the first category.
Whilst there were some easy predictions in this tournament, Magnus completely missed the mark on two players, Alireza Firouzja and Gukesh Domoraju. Alireza is someone that Magnus is very publicly fond of, even going as far as to say in 2022 that if Alireza did not win the candidates, Magnus Carlsen wouldn't defend his title. It's very clear that Magnus looked past that Alireza had very lazily qualified for the candidates by playing in some tournaments where he farmed low-rated players from his country. Instead of doing well, Alireza was maybe the most disappointing player in that entire tournament, scoring just 5 points out of 11 and only finishing above Nihat Abasov. Of course, it was very difficult to predict that Gukesh was going to win the candidates entirely, but I think that Alireza prediction alone proves that candidates players can still make bad predictions.
I mean,
Braun Swiss campaign, scoring 7.
I mean, they're going really. He's going really deep into the weeds of performances. I would say that when you look at Esipenko and Bluebaum, they're not people who are going to win the tournament, but unlike in the previous candidates where you had Abasov was desperately trying to draw. It didn't matter which color he had. He was trying desperately to draw games with white or black. Both Esipenko and Bluebaum, they're not going to contend to win the tournament, but they're not players who are going to be super afraid and they're just going to desperately try to draw games with both colors and feel like they're being pushed around in the same kind of way. So they are definitely better players to be in the tournament. That is for sure.
I kind of agree with this, but I also think it's going to be the reason that these two players perform so poorly in this upcoming candidates. For this tier list, I kind of put Matthias and Esipenko in different tiers just for the sake of not fence sitting, although I think they'll have very similar tournaments. What Nihat Abasov did in the 2024 candidates was absolutely the right thing to do. He qualified for the tournament on a technicality and was well out of his depth. Had he tried to play for decisive results, his performance in the candidates would have been nothing short of embarrassing. I do worry that Esipenko and Bluebaum will think they're too good for this and will actually try to go for decisive results. The gap between someone like Bluebaum and someone like Prague, who I put in the B tier, is just too big to ignore. If Bluebaum and Esipenko try to tread the line too thin against players of this caliber, I think they're going to have a really bad tournament.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know what this tangent is at all. This is one of the problems when you have someone who's not super active in chess trying to make a video, because, like, I'm going to tell you, I mean, I was under the impression, actually, for example, I was under the impression Sidorov had only had an account banned on Lichess. I didn't actually know he had an account banned on chess.com. And like then trying to draw a parallel between that and the Magnus thing is just like, I mean, no one's even thinking about this.
Again, I think Hikaru is wrong here. I think you probably could have said the same thing when Magnus Carlsen played Hans Niemann all those years ago. Did anyone really expect Magnus to call out Hans in the way he did after what was obviously just a very poor game from Magnus? Jan Nepomniachtchi was blindly accusing Gukesh Damaraju of cheating at the 2024 candidates, and if my memory serves me well, I'm pretty sure he accused Hikaru as well. Whilst it might not be a deciding factor, I think it'll at least play on the minds of players who are playing against Sindarov and get into some tricky positions against him. I also mentioned in the video that you could have put Esipenko, Bluebaum, and Sindarov in the same tier, but I was trying to not fence it, so I put them in different tiers respectively. But that's not so important, so let's just move on.
This ranking is weird. It's actually weird when I look at this. Like, I would not, I mean, putting Wei Yi in the same category as Bluebaum, for example, I mean, Wei Yi is a much stronger player. Like, I mean, like, putting Wei Yi next to Bluebaum down here at the bottom is just, like, showing lack of understanding of just how good he is. Like, Wei Yi draws a lot of games, but Wei Yi is a very, very good player, and he will capitalize if you make mistakes against him.
After skipping the entire section where I give some pretty reasonable evidence to why Wei Yi should be in the C tier, Hikaru disagrees, skips it, and says Wei Yi is a strong player, so he will do well. It does just seem like Hikaru thinks the higher rated you are, the better you will play at the candidates, which is just not historically accurate at all. Wei Yi qualified for the candidates in a tournament where at 431 in Hikaru's video, Hikaru says was not a good representation of who actually deserves to be in the candidates. Paired with that, outside of the World Cup, Wei Yi has had some very disappointing tournaments in this year so far. He's also played tournaments very sparingly as well, which historically does not bode well for players playing in the candidates. Anish Giri's form indicates the type of player that might just win the entire tournament. He's currently on a 52-game undefeated streak in classical chess.
Yeah.
He's not farmed any tournaments in his home country to achieve that record either. He's been playing serious opponents for the entirety of 2025, and every time he plays a Super Grandmaster, he delivers with at least a draw. Usually draws against those top players won't be enough in the candidates. But if
Did you guys see that? Did you see that garbage that he just said? He just said farm tournaments in his own country.
Undefeated streak in classical chess. He's not farmed any tournaments in his home country to
I mean, it's unbelievable, by the way. Like, I'm just gonna say this too. Like, it's unbelievable that someone who, like, the problem with talking about farming is my games, I was trying to get the games. I did not farm for rating. Farming means gaining rating points. If we look at the actual definition, farming means gaining rating points. I was simply trying to get the 40 games, and it was the most economical way of getting the games. So it's comical to me that someone can say this. It's just out of touch with reality. But to be fair to this guy, he's not like a super strong chess player. He's not someone in the world of chess. Like, I've never heard of him, frankly. So I'm not gonna be like too negative, because like, you expect someone to have some knowledge gaps. That's what I would say.
Hikaru talking about knowledge gaps here is quite funny, because when I was talking about farming tournaments, I wasn't talking about him. I was talking about Alireza Firouzja in 2024. Alireza literally played in a tournament called Alireza's Race to the Candidates, where he played against low-rated players to gain enough rating to beat out players like Dominguez Perez. What Hikaru did to qualify for the candidates is morally fine in my opinion. If Hikaru was just especially lazy and purposely didn't play chess this year, I feel like you could disagree, but considering he got married and had a literal child, I feel like that's a valid reason to not be playing so much chess. Dingler did the same thing that Hikaru did back in the 2022 candidates when Karyakin was disqualified. Because of COVID-19, Dingler was stuck in China and wasn't really able to play as much chess as he would like, so he had to play a bunch of tournaments within China against lower rated opposition to get enough games to be eligible. But yeah, I feel like it's pretty obvious that I wasn't talking about Hikaru here. I don't know why Alireza isn't the first one that comes to mind, considering he's the only example that is morally incorrect.
Like, here's an example. If this is just like a perfect example of sort of just being very biased here. If you look at this, he talks about the US Championship, but if this were another player who would have been like, it was an unconvincing victory because they were playing players who were much lower rated. There were no like top players in the tournament. And like here, there's only like Wesley and Hans, I would say, who are currently at that level. Everybody else is much weaker. So this is kind of like, if you're being honest about it, you can't try and say like, oh, this guy Prague won this tournament, but it's unconvincing, and Fabi won this tournament, but it's not, you know, it is convincing.
I actually feel like I'm the one being rage baited here, because did Hikaru really just say that Levon Aragnan is not a top grandmaster? Not to mention players like Sam Sevian, Awanda Liang, and Sam Shankland, who are all great players within their own right. It's pretty insane to suggest that this isn't at least a solid performance from Fabiano. I even mentioned in this video that because it is an an All-American tournament, it means a lot less to me. But I suppose going completely undefeated and winning a tournament is not a solid performance. Makes complete sense. Hikaru Nakamura. If you want my honest opinion, I just don't see it happening for Hikaru at this candidates. I said the same thing last candidates when Alireza was fun.
This is why my mods gave me the video, because this is why I was trying to figure out, why are the mods giving me this video to watch? I was trying to figure out, why are they giving me this video to watch? And now I realize why. I realize exactly why.
Candidates. It doesn't seem like the kind of mentality that wins you the tournament.
Again, also, I'm going to say one funny thing about farming to make the event. One funny thing, since he doesn't understand the definition of the words, he's using farming versus simply getting the games in. What I would say about this topic is the irony about this guy saying this is that when people have done things, specifically Ding Liren did something that was questionable to get into the candidates, he of course went on to become world champion. And that's something here that's completely missed by this guy, is that he misses the fact that Ding Liren went and played 30 games, I think, in like 1 month, and it was very questionable. Speaking of Levon publicly complained about it. He wrote a letter to the US Chess Federation of FIDE saying it was complete nonsense. Ding should not be qualified for the tournament. And we saw how it turned out, because for Ding, he ended up finishing in 2nd place and he ended up winning the world championship. So there's already historical precedent for something that was quote unquote wrong and someone getting rewarded for it.
This is literally what I'm talking about in the video, and it does seem like Hikaru is maybe a little bit insecure about the way that he did qualify, considering he keeps bringing it up so much. Hikaru Nakamura qualified for the candidates the same way that Ding Liren did in 2022. But although these instances differ largely morally to what Alireza did in 2024, all 3 of them have one same characteristic. They played very minimal chess in the year prior. Just before I continue though, it's kind of funny to me that Hikaru leaves out the part where Ding Liren didn't win the candidates in 2022. Had Magnus Carlsen chosen to defend his world championship title in 2022, Ding Liren wouldn't be a world champion. He finished 2nd tier on the Pomnashi by 1.5 points. So if S tier is reserved for the winner of the candidates and A tier is reserved for 2nd or 3rd place, what tier would Ding Liren have been in? The A tier, which happens to be the same tier that I put Hikaru in. Regardless, if Hikaru thinks that being compared to a world champion is somehow an insult, that says a lot more about him than my prediction. But I also feel historically, when players abstain from playing chess, they tend to underperform when it matters. I think Ding Liren trying to defend his world championship title after not really playing for an entire year, or Fabiano Caruana at the candidates in 2024 after not really playing for half a year before that. All of those reasons that we just listed is exactly why Hikaru...
I mean, Fabiano did not underperform at the candidates in 2024. What is this guy smoking?
This is absolutely such a ridiculous thing to disagree with because of how high of a pedestal Fabiano Caruana sits on in the chess world. Daniil Dubov says that Fabiano Caruana is one of the most gifted chess players he has ever seen, and most of the chess world will agree that if Magnus Carlsen didn't exist, Fabiano Caruana would have multiple world championships. So to me at least, with someone as highly regarded as Fabiano Caruana, anything short of winning the candidates is a disappointment. You could probably go and ask Fabiano himself. Do you think that his result in the 2024 candidates is something he's really proud of? Do you think in 10 years time he'll look back on that tournament, see himself tying for 2nd place with 3 other people he couldn't prove himself better than, and say that that was a highlight of his career? No, I don't really think so. I think if you spend around 6 months leading up to a tournament not playing any chess to preserve your preparation, whilst the 2 other people that you tied 2nd with did not and played chess during that time, you'd be pretty disappointed with how you played. But I suppose Hikaru has become pretty accustomed to being 2nd best at things, so this might feel like a win for him.
What I would say, if you want me to do a tier list, I don't know how to create the tier list, but my tier list would be very simple. Fabi, myself, Prag, and Anish are going to be in like an A tier or like the favorites tier. Basically, any one of us is probably could win the event, and anybody else, if they get lucky, could win. Like, I think 4 of us are in the top tier, and then Wei Yi and Sindarov, if they get red hot and have a great event, can win. Asipenko and Bluebaum can't win, and that's it. Full stop. That's it. That's basically the simple tier list.
This is the most boring candidates prediction ever. It's a good thing that earlier on in the video, Hikaru reminded us that only candidates players were good at predicting the candidates, because he's given some really crucial inside information here. What Hikaru is basically saying here is that Hikaru, Anish, Fabiano, and Prague all could win the tournament. But also, Sindarov and Wei Yi could also win the tournament. However, Bluebaum and Asipenko have absolutely no chance of winning the tournament whatsoever. So he spent 23 minutes saying that my my entire tier list is wrong, but he's only willing to rule out 2 players from winning the tournament at all. This is literally like betting on the fact that the sky will be blue tomorrow. If you put a $10,000 bet on Hikaru's predictions, you'd be lucky to get $10 back if they paid off. This is because it's such an incredibly lukewarm bet. When Dingleren vs Gukesh Domaraji in the most recent World Championship, it's kind of like saying, well, I think Dingleren will win, but I also think that Gukesh could probably win, so that's my prediction. Either one or the other will win. That's not a prediction. You've just hedged your bets for a 0% return so that no matter what happens, you always are right. There's absolutely nothing interesting about that prediction whatsoever. The entire point of the video was to do the opposite, so after the candidates had taken place, I can go back and see what I got right and see what I got wrong. It would make for a pretty boring video if I just said, well, some players might win, some players might lose, that's my prediction. Anyway, I thought the whole video was kind of funny. When I did originally make that video, it was just a fun video that I could come back to in a couple months' time to see how many predictions I got right. I don't really care about most of the garbage that Hikaru says in this video. I think that most Hikaru viewers will also admit that he is a little bit biased when it comes to this kind of thing, so I don't really take any of it to heart. Not to mention the fact that I think he did just misinterpret half of the video as well. Anyway, I thought it would be fun to go over his reaction video, and I hope that you guys did too. So I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you all in the next one.